That's a little better. Now this may have some potential. Now we're re-engaged back down here. So the other thing I can't close my mind to is that even though the profile shows the way it does, is that it might be over to the upside. And if it's over to the upside, then I need to go take a look at news. Did something happen specifically right around 9:44? Go back in my news. Report on Iraq. Oh, there it is. U.S. begins airstrikes in Iraq. Here you go. Right here. So when something changes in the market like that, because buyers were doing a really good job, I go back to the time at which it happened, and I'm looking right around that time. And there's a report that U.S. is beginning airstrikes in Iraq. Bingo. So what does that do to me? It says that this, even though I love this trade, I told you I take this trade, which I did. Things may start to change now with the if the U.S. is really starting airstrikes in Iraq. So what I want to do now, I want this to make sense to you, okay, is I want to build another volume profile. I want to take it from at least right here up through the top, and I want to build a new volume profile. So I can see selling coming in right around that time, right here, right around the time that news would have broke that U.S. is starting airstrikes in Iraq. And once news starts to hit like that, I'm telling you, anything can happen to price. So I'm looking at the profile, and I can see very, very slight interest below opening swing high, right there at 1909.50. Now here's what I'll tell you is, even though this worked as a good bounce, and this may bounce back up to the top of IB. This does not look finished down here to me. So does that make sense what I did? Right, the market was long, looked like it wanted to continue to go up. I took my trade where it made sense, and then the auction started getting a little funky. Started seeing sellers below this level, which was a little unusual, and the buyers went from kind of having their way and strength down to weakness. And so immediately when something seems to change in the market, I go back to I go over to the news and say, did something happen? And having the U.S. begin airstrikes in Iraq tells me that at this price action has a lot of potential to start to get very whippy. And then I have to make a decision as to whether or not I really want to trade in that. Because what's likely happening is there are news reports that are coming in all over the place, and they may be contradictory news reports, right? And we may see Obama come out with some kind of press release here in a few minutes, but there are probably a lot of news reports. The print is saying go short right now. The print is suggesting go short. But anytime you add some global conflict like that and the U.S. is involved, then it increases the risk. It increases the risk because, um, you know, tentative, slowly moving down. Um, Even if this was showed strength at the offer at 1909.75, weakness at the bid 1909.50, I might have taken the trade because, again, as price was coming down, I was looking for the next place. Remember that? I said I'm looking for the next place I can go long. This high right here, the opening swing high, lined up with the buying cluster and the momentum dots right there. But I also know that when we have a global conflict like this, that price can and usually will start to do a lot of different things. A little confused about how to interpret the volume at the top of the auction. I can see how the auction does not look finished, but doesn't the volume at 13 also mean there were sellers willing to step in, and doesn't that also put buyers at risk? Two things. So right here, yes, the 13 and the fact that we had this does not look finished to the upside. I'll tell you that right now. The fact that we had this volume pop out here, and this said that this wasn't finished to the upside, which gave me reason to want to take this trade. Again, my better entry would have been 11.75, but that's neither here nor there. It's over. That gave me more reason to want to take this trade off of IB high. And it doesn't matter the scenario, I would have been stopped out anyway. And it wasn't until after I got into this trade when I started seeing additional activity at the bid here and down here when I said and thought, this isn't right. Something's not right here. With all the work that the buyers just did, I have to believe in the print. So something is causing not only the sellers to make progress on price, but something is causing the buyers not to re-engage. And that's when I go, again, look at news. So when you see this activity, which is why I manage my risk, so it's a great question, Ben. The profile doesn't look finished. And because it looked like this, my expectation is more volume means acceptance. But what was happening in this trade is this volume node right here wasn't acceptance, at least not at this point. It was sellers starting to come in and sellers starting to hold and then start to move price back down. And so that's what, again, got me managing this trade the way I did and eventually saying, something's not right here. Something's going on, or most likely going on, because normally this kind of profile would make this a great trade. The way that this set up would make this a great trade. And the fact that we had more activity at the bid coming in underneath it just didn't make sense. Now again, the market can and will do anything it wants to do, and we have to be prepared for that. And again, as I looked at this and said, that's just not normal, especially after buyers had all this accomplishment. We're seeing the print or the volume profile start to take shape and not be finished to the upside. I could expect some slippage below IB, but not when we start engaging, sellers start engaging 2 ticks this heavy below the IB. Something's not right at that point, or something's different. That's exactly right. So he says I think I'm starting to get it. Basically, when we see volume, we assume acceptance until proven otherwise. Yes, or guilty. Yes, that's exactly right. And because when you look at volume profile and you see the acceptance, you see the volume, and you kind of assume acceptance on that, then if anything happens that doesn't confirm that, you can manage to it. You can effectively manage. And now IB is holding. So what I'm expecting is if I go back into news, let's that maybe I'll see something that kind of contradicts. Let me see, when would that be? Back down at 10 o'clock. FAA restricts U.S. operator flights over Iraq. That doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence. So, but you got it, Ben. That's exactly right. Light bulb, aha moment. That's great. Yes, and when the sellers started hitting the bid, that proved otherwise. And that's why I managed out of that trade. So remember, I got in right here, and then all of a sudden there was this significant activity coming in at the bid right there. I mean, something had happened, something different. I mean, again, I would expect price potentially to slip a little bit, but not like that. I mean, not that kind of pressure. So you got it. That's exactly right. When, especially in this kind of scenario, when price pops up and it doesn't look finished and we're getting acceptance, we're getting more volume, which would suggest acceptance, that's when you're looking for price to continue. Even now, this does not look finished to the upside. Look where VPOC is. Well, I guess that's not the overall VPOC. Overall VPOC is still down at 1906. But since we drew this, it's now over that level. Oh, that's true. A wholesale inventory number came in at 10. That's probably what did this. I was looking for something in the news relative to Iraq, which is yeah, wholesale trade at 10 a.m. I can tell you this, that there is no way with this auction down here that I would have went long off of opening swing high. There's no way I would have taken that trade. Now, the next time down here, I might have taken that trade, but this, again, the way that this auctioned at the end just was a little riskier for me. So we got a little bit of a low volume area at 1275 right there. So this has the potential to be another opportunity. Long here at 13. Again, looking for 1475 or higher. 1375 was the original target. So you can see it doesn't take much in a day. Oil is the same way. I mean, oil, something can happen and boom, you're, see if I can pull up my oil chart. Oh, there's no audio. I'm sorry about that. Um, I'll go back to this. I'm very sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Must have bumped my mute button. Oil is a very mechanical um, instrument. And so when I look at the oil profile here, I see this big, long area that's a low volume area. A couple of times it bounced right off of this and you got some ticks on that. But the way that this volume came out here, this suggested a lot of buyers holding down at 97.25, right? Price didn't move. It hit here several times, 97.25. So if short is going to be the consideration, and this is not finished to the downside, I mean, from a profile standpoint, it doesn't look finished. But what you have to understand is buyers held in this area. Sorry about the volume. And so what I would look for, because oil is a very mechanical instrument, I use these fibs. And what I really am looking for is a move back anywhere from the 61.8 to 76.4. I'm looking for this type of retracement. I'm looking at retracements and extensions on oil. And so I'm looking for something to align in this, beginning here and somewhere inside of here. So there is a potential trade. It's right up at the back of this low volume area. And while you could make a trade short here and that would have worked several times, the risk, and when you have a situation like this where you got a lot of low volume area, you've got a whole range of low volume, the risk is that price could easily come all the way up this low volume area, kind of fill this in before moving down. So yeah, you would have missed these trades a couple of times, but the better trade is up here. So what I would do now is start here at 97.51. I really don't want to see this thing kind of come through 97.55. But then I would start looking at the print at 97.51. I would to 55. I would start looking for weakness and strength coming back in at the bid. And if I got that, I might take a trade. So 55 would be the number. There's weakness, strength. Well, this one's relatively easy. Not saying it's absolutely going to work. The better trade is up here at 53. But you see the weakness that came back in? It went up to the 55 level. I was looking 51 to 55. Came back up, got weakness at the offer. And now simply if I got, I'm just going to, if I got strength, I'd let that go. So my stop is pretty small on oil. My target was all the way back down here. So I had a pretty strong risk reward. And I got to, now that I think about it, trying to trade oil when the U.S. is bombing Iraq is probably not a smart idea. Right? And we see strength coming back in. So that was a scenario that I generally look for on oil. But again, while there are reports of U.S. bombing Iraq, probably not the best time to trade oil. But if I would have given this a little bit more room, 10 ticks is, this would have worked well. That's what I was looking for. Oh well. But that now you can see how it is. With oil, the levels, it poked through this low volume area and went all the way up to 97.60. Oil can be, again, don't mean the pun, but can be a little slippery. But these are the levels I'm generally looking to take a trade short, between this 51 and 57. Now, if I would have waited for 57, I would have been fine. I was willing to give it more than 3 ticks. I was willing to wait till 57, but as I looked at the print, the print at the time when I got in showed weakness and strength at the bid and then just came up and finished out up here. That's just want you to know this still has potential all the way back down to 97.25. So the risk reward on this trade was 10-1. Which is pretty good. All right, back here at the ES ranch, it looks like this might be starting to head back up. We're going to run out of time here soon, so you know what? I will tell you that I'm feeling a little pressure to take a trade because we're going to run out of time, and I want to hit my objective by the time is over, and that's just not a good way to trade. So VPOC just shifted up here to 1913 from that time we drew that last profile, where if you look at the whole, right, so from the time we drew this profile, and now what I would do is look, we got a really nice distribution up here. This is showing really good acceptance. When I go back to the original profile, still a little thin, but you can see 1913, we're getting some acceptance. Right now it's finished to the upside. But that could change. If the buyers start re-engaging 1375.14, then on a longer term chart, let's go back to it, see if I can find that. On a longer term chart, what are we looking for? We're looking for above, we're looking for price to start coming around 1475 level and then eventually testing up to 17. If we start getting acceptance around that 1475, 15 level, I would expect to see 17.25, maybe even higher. So the other thing that you can do now that it's auctioning up here, you can take a look from this swing low. Take a look at the profile here. You can see from this time it popped up, very little interest down here. Back above IB high, getting a lot of acceptance. Again, it doesn't look quite finished to the upside. So with the acceptance above IB, I certainly would give weight to the long. When we look at what we have from a cluster standpoint, neutral, 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 selling, buying, neutral, selling down here, buying up here. There's nothing inherently in here that would suggest to go long. The only thing that I can see is, again, we're getting acceptance above this level, and that acceptance would typically mean on a market that's moving higher, a test to the upside. But we're still getting a little bit of erratic movement. And you can see that trade on oil now. The level worked. If I would have just waited to the back edge of my area, 97.57. Again, I'm expecting price back down to 97.25. The trade worked. I just didn't give it enough room, and I got in at the front side of that area, as opposed to more the middle or back edge. So, but so far that trade's worked real well. Yeah, I won't do that. So this looks like we're getting strength back at the bid. Possibility here that we'll see a new high for the day. I can tell you that when I used to run a trading room, that my There were times when the trading room was going to close, and I was more willing to take some risk like that to get a trade in, and it was just really, really stupid trading. It didn't help anybody. So again, part of the psychology of trading is just kind of overcoming your weaknesses and getting more patience. So you see this volume growing right here? This is also, again, suggesting the auction's not over. We'll probably see this just pop. But if you were trading based on this profile, again, whenever I make a trade, I'm always making a trade or trying to make a trade based on my risk. Where can I manage my risk the best? Because there's a high probability that if I get in where I can manage my risk the best, that my risk reward is going to always work in my favor. So I can wind up leaving the day green. And it may not be what I wanted to get out of the day, though the day isn't over. By managing my risk and letting some of the winners go, I'm still going to wind up green. And in the long run, this is not a sprint. Day trading is a marathon, and you got to let the market tell you what to do. All right, so again, when I look at the profile, not really finished to the upside. This little volume node tells me sellers are stepping in. Weakness, weakness, we got some selling. This would be an opportunity likely for a breakout. And the level that I'm looking at above was that 17 quarter level. And the reason I say breakout is because look at all the selling, and this is initiative selling up here. All this selling coming in once, twice. If this starts getting into strength and starts breaking out, above 15.25. Remember, this was a higher volume area yesterday. We're likely to see some amount of buying continue to push price up. So this would be another area that I would look at a potential breakout trade, simply because I'm looking at a target above, and I can see the selling coming in. If buyers press into those sellers, they're going to get stopped pretty quick. Does that make sense?